Hello guys, welcome back to DorkNinjaGaming's special news report with Ninja Misty and Ninja Andrew. And this time we are covering Update 47 in the DC Universe. And unless you have been under a rock, you'll know that this update launched this past week and has caused a lot of confusion and controversy. So we wanted to bring our information and opinion to you guys to let you know that it is not the end of the world and why we think that this update is a sign that DC is headed in the right direction.
Woohoo!
So with that, I will turn it over to Ninja Andrew to get us started.
That's right. So ever since the update came out, I think there's been a lot of confusion. There's been a lot of misinformation or disinformation or people who just don't quite understand what's been going on or why it's going on or why it happened. So in order to answer all of these questions, we're just going to kind of like take it back to the beginning a little bit and try to explain some of the reasons or some of the issues that this update was actually probably targeted at trying to fix. So the kinds of things that we're talking about here are before this update, you had a lot of, or we as the community, there was a lot of problems with new players to the game being either walked through or blasting through way too much of the content way too fast and getting up to the very high tiers, and they show up there and they don't have their skill points, they don't have the gear, they don't even have the knowledge of how to do the content, and they're still expecting to get through, and they're still expecting that everybody is going to, you know, carry them through and do everything for them. And I think that the reason that these changes have been made have been to sort of combat that sort of issue on a larger scale. And is there anything you want to add?
I do. Two things.
Sure.
One, you saw them moving towards, I think, what we see now with stopping the walk-in.
Right.
And, you know, there's a lot of reasons for that. And I think when you were giving that list, I think the problem is they did have the gear, but it was the all dressed up and no place to go scenario.
Right.
You had people who had the gear because they had been walked through. But like you said, they didn't have the skill points. They didn't have the experience. Now, we're not talking about players who this is their 10th alt, and they're just, you know, blasting through with their league to get a character up there, and you can buy all your skill points,
Right.
and you are ready to go. We're talking about new players that come in, and, you know, I'm sure everybody within the sound of my voice has been in an instance where you had somebody who did not know what they were doing, but they had the gear.
And they were much
we,
too high of a tier to make sense. It's like
we were in tier 5, at least it was tier 5 content one time with a tank who had 68 skill points.
Yeah.
Now, you know, that's not good for the team or for the game. And now we've been here for a very long time. We've been here since the very beginning. So, you know, we've seen how this game has changed. But if you're a new player to this game and you start getting in a lot of instances like that, you're going to walk away from this game and do something else.
Maybe. But I think that a lot of the changes that they've made have sort of taken the game back to even almost like an earlier state, because the game now feels more familiar to Misty and I because the content is as difficult as it was when we first had to play it. Because there was no free ride for Misty and I when we first started playing. So having said that, let's go through like some of the changes that they made and one by one and just sort of talk about, you know, how that works and how that affects the game.
Absolutely. And guys, if you want a quick overview of the changes, when you go to your character select screen, just tab over with L2 and read your welcome message, and it kind of gives you a little concise overview.
That's right.
If you've never noticed that before. So that's actually what we're going to take a look at, and we can start it off with NPC difficulty scaling. This one's pretty easy. Basically, now, always remember that this is going off of your equipped CR. So what are you actually wearing?
Yeah.
And with NPC difficulty scaling, if you're fighting an NPC whose combat rating is higher than your equipped CR, they're going to deal more damage to you, and you're going to take more damage. If you're fighting an NPC with a CR that is lower than your equipped CR, you're going to do more damage and take less damage. It's that simple.
And that's a pretty straightforward change, and it's pretty, like, it's kind of like the expected thing. Like, that's how you expect the MMO to work in the first place. So it's kind of, it makes it more accessible in the sense that it makes more sense to the player who's just coming into the game for the first time, that it's like, okay, things work this way. But in addition to that, like, the NPC difficulty scaling now more accurately reflects how difficult the game was for Misty and I when we first started playing. So there's a lot of people out there now who are all like, oh, this content's too hard, you know, I used to be able to, like, solo this thing, and I could get through no problem, and now I can't even get through, and it's like a tier 3 raid or alert or something like that. And it's like, well, you know, neither could we when we first started playing, and the fact that, you know what I mean, you can do that isn't necessarily good for the community. You know what I mean? Like, this is an MMO. It's not a go and solo the game by yourself game. You know what I mean? And take all the stuff for you, and then there's no help for anybody else. It's kind of like, that's a bit selfish. So it's kind of like, these changes are sort of to encourage people to start working together again, because the content is going to be a little bit more challenging. And it's not to say that it's going to be completely impossible all the way across the board. Of course you're going to be able to become powerful and stuff like that, but it's no longer going to be the case where the highest level content in the game is going to, when you get all the armor, it's going to be a breeze for you. When you get through the highest level content in the game and you have all the armor, it's going to be manageable for you. Okay? That's the highest that you can get. But the caveat to that is that they're going to give you DLC in addition to that yet again. So when you get to that DLC, you're going to get more armor that's going to make the current stuff that's difficult more easy, and so on and so forth. So eventually, by the end of the game, yeah, there will be some stuff out there that's difficult to do, but the rest of the majority of the game is still going to be easy by comparison. So I just think that makes it more realistic. How about you?
Well, I think so. I mean, part of the reason that, at least from my perspective, that I want to play a game like this is because I like playing in groups or with other people and working as a team. And the ability to do my role, you know, and have the team rely on me. And we'll talk a little bit more about that with, you know, how you should be playing your raid. But I think it's just an overall step in the right direction as far as making this a game that is not a joke. I mean, really, do you really want to invest a lot of time in a game that you reach a certain level and then you can just solo the whole game? It's like, where's the fun in that?
Where's the challenge and the reward?
If I want to go solo something, I'll just go play a single-player game.
That's right.
And I'll solo it. This game was built on the idea of teamwork and camaraderie, and that's the whole thing behind, you know, superheroes in the DC universe. It's a team. It's, you know, we're a team. And I don't know why everybody is getting so upset. I understand change is hard, okay? Yeah. I understand when you're used to something, but I think moving forward that it's the right direction to keep the game alive, to keep the game fresh, to keep new people interested. Because, let's all be honest, if you're brand new to this game and you go into an alert or a raid and it's full of 114s and they blast through everything and you get to do nothing, that's not fun. You know, it's just, it's not a good experience.
The game now feels, to me, healthier because of the challenge. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like it's got longevity, it's got a purpose, it's more meaningful. And motivational. You want to work more, you know, towards getting this content, and it means something when you do get it, you know? But go ahead.
And the point of the challenge is just like when you exercise, you're working your skills. So when you're working your skills coming up through all this content, by the time you get to the end content, you know what you're doing.
Right.
You're training.
Yeah.
You know, you're training your way up so that you know how to play your character, you know the subtle nuances that you need to be effective. And I think that these changes force you to be more present when you're playing and not just zoned out.
That's right. No more Easy Street. Woot!
Oh, dang it. Okay.
That's right. So continuing on with the changes, you want to go with the next one?
Is that stat flattening?
Yes.
All right, I'll let you cover that because...
Okay, well, it just sort of relates to what we've been talking about already, guys, just in the sense that it's like, this is more related to the fact that the end game content is now going to be more difficult. It's going to have a challenge. It's not just going to be something you can waltz through with your super high level and there's no, difficulty for you whatsoever. It means that, okay, we're going to just take that down a notch, and now, okay, when you get the gear, it's going to be, you're still going to be able to make it through. It's going to be okay to get through, but it's not going to be like nothing. It's not going to be a joke. You know what I mean? You're still going to have to work for your stuff here,
And I know under kind of their heading of stat flattening, they also made some changes to like weapon combo damage. I know they changed the damage for non-basic weapon combos, like your hold attack has been increased and brought a little closer to the damage caused by advanced mechanics and weapons mastery, although advanced mechanics and weapons mastery are still your best option for maximum damage.
That's right.
But they've kind of made these little behind-the-scene tweaks. And I know they did that they reduced the power cost and vitalization.
And I think also to some degree the stat flattening also is what's responsible for everybody getting buffs to certain stats, as far as like I'm a troller, my Vite is much better than it was. But at the same time, when I go into instances, it doesn't feel like I'm throwing more power. It just feels like everybody's a bit more balanced out. And when I go into lower level content, I feel like I'm a bit more powerful now. So I'm not completely against that. It feels actually pretty good to me all around, the level of difficulty versus, what you're having to do for it.
Right.
All
right, so on to Legends.
I don't think there's too much that's actually important about Legends other than to mention that, some of the stuff about armor penetration and blocking have been changed slightly. The mechanics, and, you'll notice now that a lot of characters will give you the resist message when you attack them, and that's always been in the game, but it's usually been a controller thing when characters are above your dominance level that they resist you, and so it tells you that they resist. But now that message is being put out to everybody, and I think it's helpful because it tells them, okay, these attacks are maybe a bit more effective in this particular combination or against these types of dudes than these ones. And when I attack them, like when you attack a group of ads, you want to use your AoEs preferably. They might resist some of your stuns. That's just the nature of it. So it's better messaging, I feel. So, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And just, I think the changes to block and the mechanics for all this stuff, has more so to do with just having to balance it in relationship to the new scheme of things rather than it actually feeling like it's going to be really changed. Like, blocking doesn't feel like it's been changed at all, but they probably had to change the amount of power and whatever just to balance everything out. So,
right. It scales with you.
That's right.
So then another big change that came along was the change to mods and combat rating. So your armor mods no longer contribute to your combat rating. And I'm sure, if you played this for any period of time, you're trying to boost your combat rating. So you're like, oh, I need to mod my armor. And you would mod it and, magically you would increase your level by 2,
Yeah.
Those days are over.
Woot.
So now, you really need to pay attention to the gear that you're buying because you have this combined total of 115% that makes up your combat rating. The first pieces of armor you need to buy are going to be your weapon and your legs and your chest.
Yeah.
Those 3 contribute 12% each.
That's right. So they give you the biggest boost whenever you buy a new set of anything.
Yes, and then that's followed by your helmet at 11%, and then it drops down to shoulders at 9%, your feet...
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Your feet, hands... Oh, the back... Okay.
Yeah.
Shoulders are 9, back is 8, feet, hands and waist are 7. Your face and neck are 6, and the rings are also 6 each. So 2 rings is going to give you 12. Because, you know, sometimes the rings are pretty cheap. So if you're able to buy 2 of those, you get that 12% boost, like you would with buying
the weapon,
your legs or your weapon. Yeah. Right. So just pay attention to the order in which you buy your armor out of the vendors.
That's right. And I just want to mention here that the changes to combat rating due to this, the removal of mods affecting combat rating, this is actually probably the single most significant change that's actually happened, bar none, in the game, because this is the one that probably took the most calculation to figure out, okay, what does every piece give you now if it's not modded?
Right.
Right? So what I'm going to basically say about that is that it's like, don't panic, because your gear, like, I went from being a 112 with mods to a 112 without mods. So it's not like my CR got lowered when they took away all of the things. It's been balanced, and the effect now with the mods, I think, is that you want to still mod your armor, and the better your mods are, the better it's going to be for you. It's not something that you want to ignore, but it's just not something that's going to allow you to get into more content just simply by doing that. It's like, no, you need to mod your gear for your current level, and that's what they're trying to encourage you to do.
They're preventing, you know, at every turn, people kind of sneaking into content that they're really not geared to be in.
And not supposed to be doing. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. And that's actually, like, the single best change that they could have made for this game. And it's the single biggest change that gives it purpose and gives people like me motivation, and other people who are just starting out motivation to continue playing. And that's why I think it's going to also just help with the longevity of this game in the long term.
Absolutely.
You know?
Then the next thing is low-level NPC combat and difficulty pass. If you need the detailed notes on this, just go to the forum under announcements and you can read it. You know, is there anything you really need to say there? It's just combat's been improved in some of the lower-level instances, and it goes through, I mean, everything from, you know, the lair of the Spectre to the greenhouse, and just talking about little tweaks that have been made.
That's right. And there was also, like, the weaponization, super strength, but those are just, once again, things that are balanced just because they had to. So, just throwing those in there.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, and then the other big change that has caused a lot of controversy is the new universal currency. Mm. So, you have seen your marks of triumph, unless you were savvy enough to spend them prior to the update, get flushed down the cosmic toilet once you hit your cap of 100 marks of victory. Ninja Andrew and I both lost a big old pile of marks of triumph because we just weren't thinking. You know, not the end of the world. You know,
not the first time they've taken stuff away from us either.
No.
You know?
The marks have changed bazillion times since the beginning of this game. We've had everything. I can't even remember what all we've had.
Yeah. And they also knocked down our currency at one point. They've knocked down our armors at various other points. Like, this isn't some sort of, like, new, you know, first ever, they've taken something away. It's like, no, they've probably done that about 10 times already, actually, but, you know.
Now, okay, 2 things I want to say here.
Sure.
One is that I like the universal currency.
Yep.
It's easier. I'm glad that the marks of myth, the marks of power, I'm glad all that's gone. You know, go away. Never need to see that kind of stuff again. The only thing that I will say that I don't like is that I wish the cap was higher than 100.
I wish the cap was higher than 100, maybe 250. And then also, I wish that the cost per suit was a little bit more realistic. Like, the tier 1 suit being 45 for a weapon, I think that's a little steep. Same with some of the pieces there. Like, I think that those pieces should have probably been maybe about 15 down to 5 for the first suit, and then you could go up to like 20 down to 10 for the next suit, and so on and so forth. I think that would have been a little bit nicer for people just starting out, or people who were going to have to now start actually grinding, that it wouldn't have felt like it was the worst thing in the world to have to, I just have to get this suit, blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, I think that those numbers are there because of how much content is available for you to do, and that if you do the content, you will be able to progress through it. So,
well,
you know.
And as you're leveling up, by the time you hit level 30, you'll have enough marks of victory to buy your tier 1 weapon and probably one piece of gear, because you are hitting right at 100 marks of victory when you hit level 30 from doing all of your low-level missions and the side missions, gathering that up.
That's right.
So just make sure that you spend those wisely.
Yes. And
we'll cover that in more detail in another episode. But just so you know, when you hit level 30, you will be able to spend some of your marks of victory.
And just try not to panic if you lost some, because it's not going to be the end of the world, I promise. Like, by the time Christmas rolls around, you're not even going to remember this update anymore. So, just saying.
Exactly. And kind of along those lines, they changed, if you look at your mainframe now, buying your sidekicks or your orbital strikes, they've changed the whole scheme of the way your mainframe works.
That's right. It's actually much easier now and much more straightforward and easy to keep on top of, in my opinion. So I'm all for it. Yeah.
It's, yes, you are spending your marks of victory, but at least you're not having to spend, 13,000 of them.
Yes. And so also just one last major topic to just get into in this episode would be that one of the biggest changes that's also came with this content is that you now no longer have to regrind old content in order to progress through the game. The only reason you need to go back to old content is if you need to get a suit, a style, a collection, some type of physical or tangible object of some sort that you need out of that particular instance. Or if you want to help a friend, but go ahead, yeah.
Let me interject on the style thing. What they've also done is there's a new iconic style vendor that's in the Hall of Heroes, and in the Hall of Doom, I'm not sure where they put those, probably down...
it's in the pit, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the pit, and you're able to buy some of those iconic suits, like the Speed Force Spectrum or Kryptonian Commander. So just know that those are there in case you haven't been able to get them and you don't want to grind those lower levels.
Right.
Because something we didn't mention, when you look at your duos, alerts, raids, and I'm sure solo challenge modes, it will now tell you, based on your combat rating, am I going to get marks and loot, or am I just going to get loot?
Right.
So just pay attention to that as well, and I'll throw it back to you.
Sure. Just going back to the fact that you don't have to go back to regrind lower instances, that's actually my favorite change of this entire update, is the fact that it's like, this game used to be very heavy on the grind. Like, you would get through your tier 1, 2, 3, 4... 5 contents, you get up to tier 6, and even though you're in tier 6, you'd have to go back every week and regrind all of those low-level instances. And the fact that you now don't have to do that, they've given us the break of being like, you get to go through each tier, you progress on to the next tier. If there's something you need, you're going to go back and play that instance. If you need to go and help your friend, you're going to go back and play that instance. But come on, guys, you know that none of us were out here, like, dying to go back into some of those instances over and over and over again that we've already played, umpteenth thousands of times. You know what I mean?
Well, some of us would, but it depends on what instance it was.
But it's not like we were doing that for any other reason other than that we needed something out of it, or we wanted to go and raid it with friends. Like, I'm sure there are some people out there who raid all the content all the time anyways and loved it, but it's just like, it's nice to have that break finally and just to be able to work on the content that's at your level and be able to progress through the game like that. So I think that these have been some of the best positive changes that we've seen probably ever in any update to this game. And I don't know if the kudos goes to the developers or if the kudos goes to Daybreak Games, which is the new owners of.
We'll just give kudos to everybody.
And I think to whoever's out there who's responsible for this, kudos to you, man. This is this actually brought me back to this game. If these changes hadn't been made, I would probably not be here right now. So it's...
He says that, but he knows that he knows that as long as Ninja Misty flies the skies, he's around somewhere in the shadows.
It's true.
but it, I will, give you credit in that statement.
Yeah.
It's reinvigorated you to play.
Motivation.
Instead of just coming and saying, okay, we need to do something for seasonal or do something for the channel, you're actually playing the game again.
That's true. And I just want to thank whoever out there did that, because it gives everything meaning again, Woo!
All right, guys, there are a few more kind of little tidbits that you can look at the DCUO forums if you want to just read every teeny tiny little detail of changes that were made. I will say one more thing. They did reduce the cost for opening the slots on your utility belt. I think it's 5 marks of victory now, so that is also nice. Then they fixed, they did some of their housekeeping type issues. And that wraps up update 47.
Woot.
I think probably one of the most controversial updates in at least recent memory to DCUO.
That's right.
So if you want to let us know how you feel about the update, you can leave it in the comments. And before we sign off, I will let Ninja Andrew give his final thoughts.
Well, I just wanted to just put this out there really quickly. I'm going to be really busy over the next couple weeks, guys, because I've got some stuff going on. But what I wanted to say is that Misty and I are going to be starting a series of videos going into how to survive in this game after the update and what to do now and what to do for the future, how to be successful and all that stuff. So stay tuned to the channel. We've got lots more stuff coming. Just give us a little time because we're really busy right now. Woo.
That's right, guys. All right, like, subscribe, comments, questions. Tell your friends. Tell your neighbors. Tell everybody you know.
Tell your mom because it's Mother's Day. Oh my God.
That's right. Word to your mother.
That's right.
And join us next time, guys, for more epic adventures on Dork Ninja Gaming. Bye.
Woohoo.